Good day, everybody.
Good day, everybody.
I have found the problem. Bless you all. Thank you so much for returning and being here with us today.
Simple error.
This wasn't working, but the computer had a mute button, and we're here now. So bless you all. Thank you so much for waiting and being very patient.
Welcome.
Which brings us to the topic of today's show. But first, I know that some of you may be here temporarily and you might have some questions. And of course, we dedicate our time to you and helping elevate and raise your awareness to the external and the internal. So if you do have questions, please write them in the comments and we will do our very best to get straight to them. And today's topic is directed slightly with the great importance of the virtues and how powerful they are to retrain your mind, to switch it from looking at the negatives in life to align with the positives, to change the very way your mind is perceiving reality, thus elevating and raising your vibration frequency, so life will then bless you with the vibrational experience that you are sending out. So I'm very glad to see everyone is hearing us. So thank you very much. So I'm sure that most of you here have been with us for some time and seen the attention and focus that we have brought to the virtues. And for us, during our experience with the virtues, it is the most profound transformation you will ever find for your mind. Of course, this is consciously reprogramming your own individual perception and reality. To then elevate yourself beyond that is another topic, which is the self, non-judgmental, pure in its nature. So, first of all, we could speak maybe on a couple of the virtues that we have already touched on today, which is patience.
Yes, patience is always the one that is at the forefront, I think, isn't it? Because it appears often throughout the day.
And we have many people always saying to us that patience is the one that needs the most practice.
And the saying is, patience is a virtue. So it's very well known within the virtue dialogue.
It was the only virtue my mother told me.
Yeah,
it was the only one that she knew, I feel.
It usually revolves around the waiting aspect, or having to give in to queuing or receiving something. And the test is often from within, because you feel like a lot of things come up when you have these tests. Emotions, a stress hormone gets released, and it can cause like a lot of anxiety in beings that aren't in control.
There's more anger, I would say, that arises through the nature of being impatient, for sure.
Yeah, I think with maybe through the masculine side of things, the anger comes up, but be aware of like any feelings of when you have that expectation of something and it doesn't happen, that's when we sort of feel that anxiety coming through as well. So the emotional side of things that comes up is very hard to control at first, but with practice.
First, I think we need to understand why is this impatient nature within us, and how do we feel this negativity from it. And I'd like to use the simple scenario as just being in a queue, waiting to pay a till. There's a long queue, maybe there's just one person serving. You're stood there, the lady in front drops things, then she starts to count her ones and twos, and you're stood here and you're feeling anger arise, and maybe slight anxiety because you have the idea you need to be somewhere or that you might be late. While you're stood there, take a look inside of yourself, and you'll find that there is an underlying expectation, an underlying aspect of yourself that says this should be different here. And I need to be somewhere else because this or this is going to happen. And this is essentially the mind interpreting reality in a way for yourself. And this is what the ego does. It's giving you solutions or problems or issues, raising them to your awareness from its previous nature or previous programming. There's only one way to be able to elevate beyond this, and it's conscious contemplation in the moment as these things arise. So you can ask yourself, being in this queue, is there any way that I can change what's happening? And of course, you can't make any difference. The only choices you have is to leave, put the things down and go, or wait until it's your time to be served. So through recognition, you can tell yourself or reprogram the mind consistently as these things arise that there is no need for this. I accept that I have to wait here, and then I will surrender the thought processes that continually arise in that moment. And as you learn to do this, you observe the nature of the mind, separating yourself, recognizing that it is not actually yourself. It is a function that arises within you. Over time, you pick up the tool, which is instead of identifying with every thought that arises from the mind, you can just simply observe it and let it go. And as you continually practice this, you learn the art of not picking up ideas and remaining as you were, which is still, patient, and enjoy. And typically one by one, as these things arise, you transcend them simply in this way. And you'll find yourself without this internal dialogue, without these expectations, without the mind saying things should be different. And then peace falls on your feet. And this is just a simple application of one of the virtues.
When we talk of any of the virtues, there's a couple of aspects that we need to look at. Is when we're, taking, for instance, what Josh has just touched upon, like waiting in a queue or waiting for things to happen. This is like an external part of patience. But when we look at the internal ways that we can free ourselves from this, is looking at how to be patient with, practices that we put into place for things to get easier for us. We really need to give ourselves self-care and self-love, that things take time to change. It's about taking baby steps, no matter what it is. It could be on your food journey or your physical, your body journey. It could be on emotional side, energetic side. Things take a while to put practices in place, and your journey is really beautiful if you see it in that light. We don't always want to think about, we must rush to that destination to get there, yesterday. It's all about the journey and how we, evolve through those stages. So
because the goal will never make you. It is the journey to reach this space that defines
so
what you've
we
done.
need to really see the beauty in that side of it. And I was talking with a beautiful being today, and we were talking about how the journey is so special that without that, if we just got to the destination straight away without that actual experience of the journey, it becomes irrelevant, because all of the learning and the experience and the truth comes from the steps that you take to get there. And that's the beauty of it. It doesn't matter how long it takes. It's just that evolution of being. And that's where the virtues have really helped.
They just realign you, don't they? They realign you
balance.
to a level of balance, which is so necessary for your evolution. And the reason why you feel these aggravations and intensities during these periods of sinful behavior or sinful mind, or you could say the vices, attuning to the vices rather than the virtue, is for your evolutionary purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why the queues are longer. There's a reason why the traffic is jammed. And you realize as soon as you let go of this thought process, because you're actually resonating at a certain frequency that needs the experience to manifest for you to then evolve beyond it. As soon as you let go, you'll notice things like the till next to you opening up, the traffic alleviating.
The whole world just opens up. It's like you're in an actual movie creating it all because you let go of that, energy around all of these aspects. And it's really magical to see and to view it as that great
It's so
saying,
consistent.
know thyself. And once you're in that space, then things just open up and arise, and that's when the true magic can really start to happen.
Ultimately, everything converges to this, and we'll bring it through each virtue. But you're trying to change what is. You're not in a flow with the isness, and the mind is always saying something should be different here. I need to change this. I need to change that. I wish this wasn't happening. Because you're going against the flow of life. You're causing resistance. Resistance externally, resistance internally. Thus, you're blocking the energy flow and feeling negative emotions. So that's one of the most important things that anyone can direct you to, is you have to let go of trying to change what is happening, be with what is, and let go of what is not. Because what is not is happening within the mind, and what is happening is just here and now. And as you continue to observe yourself, you'll see that there's no conflict externally. It's just the ideas you hold about this situation that's causing this suffering. So one is the idea, and that idea is essentially saying, this needs to be different. Can you have the ability consciously to change the way that your mind is interpreting that moment? This is your evolution. I like the comment. I've seen it from Sister Diane. Patience. Now I understand why there was no sound.
The sound at the start.
Yeah. And once we truly apply this, over time we build up this very innate knowing about the functionalities of our mind. And there is your freedom. If we continually identify with the mind and every thought that arises within it, we're just going to continue to live life suffering with the ideas we hold about what is not. And as soon as we can learn to let go, even better not pick up, you remain as you were before the idea arose, and you're peaceful. You will remain that which you truly are, the self-experiencing. And without the concepts, everything is joyful. Every moment is appreciated. You're full in gratitude for all of this beauty that is just awe and amazing. Road rage is another one, Brother Morgan. You know, most people drive, most people travel through cities, they experience traffic jams, and they experience others through their suffering, expressing it on the road. You know, it's one of the things that was my challenge, was experiencing fight or flight anytime I seen the police, or when somebody was trying to be aggressive towards me. Because I grew up as a very alpha male that had to always prove oneself to be the most dominant alpha. But you can see this is just an idea that I was programmed with through my observations of my reality, that boxed me to a persona or a personality, which, if continually acted upon, just leads to more expressive anger, more detailed, terrible situations that could lead one to be in prison or dead. And this is where life needs to take someone who hasn't had the ability to go inward in these situations.
When you realize that these teachings difficult teachings are the most profound, because once you realize that it's a teaching and not something that puts pressure on you and it's like oppressing you, then you can be so free from this, and you can have an actual joke with it, because you can look at it in a different light. And when you feel that anger arise or that fear arise, you can know that it's a teaching for you, that is a trigger. And these are the most special teachings. The hardest ones are the most profound, because we get such an elevation from them once we can see them for what they truly are. So we can look at it in the opposite way, that these joyful situations are really great, but when we have the hard teachings, these are where we truly transcend and evolve, because this is where the areas that we need to look at, the darker areas that are causing trauma and chaos to the body, and we can then put them right. Because if they're not brought to the surface and brought to light, then we don't know what's underneath. So to tackle that, it's really important that they're brought to the surface, so that we can.
It's only you that has the ability to do this. There's nobody else. So this is why the journey is yours, and you must go within. You must know the self, because happiness, what the ego is consistently doing is wanting more, because it's trying to find a temporary happiness or a temporary distraction, which is innately releasing the hormones of joy, serotonin and dopamine. And when we're not experiencing these things, we experience the opposite. And we're experiencing the negative chemical reactions in our body, like cortisol and adrenaline being released. This is what is happening through fight or flight, through anxiety, through fear, through depression. But little do most people know that you have the ability to control these yourself. You have the ability to sit with yourself, contemplate, and reshape the mind's interpretation of reality to bring joy to any situation.
But again, the external, like everyone's always chasing that feeling from food or from something that someone else can give to them. It's that external environment again. But if you create that with the internal environment, then there's no need to go searching anymore, because you're already it. It's already there, ready for you. But it's just the fact that many beings feel like they need to search for it from an external part of them, which will never bring them true joy or happiness, because you'll always have a crash after the event, which is why when you see a lot of athletes, even at the peak of their
Tyson Fury, for
game,
example,
they have this immense joy and happiness because they've reached that pinnacle of what they feel that their life is.
So many endorphins being released
at one time, and then they get a huge crash after the event because they don't know how to handle that, huge leap and then huge crash. So it's not about that roller coaster of emotions and hormones. It's about that balance, creating that balance at all times.
Which brings us to, the virtue temperance. And this is what it means. It means having the ability in each moment to bring balance through your own inner workings and contemplation. So let's say instantaneously, on a reactive state, the mind is interpreting reality in a certain way. Let's give a scenario. Your partner you just found out your partner had been with somebody else, for example. In that moment, do you choose reactivity? Do you choose to identify with every single thought process that leads you into instability and emotional conflict? Or do you choose to sit with yourself, contemplate, do not actually pick up the thoughts that are arising, but consciously choose to bring the light in this situation? Ask yourself, is there a chance that you can change someone's will? That is an impossibility. If somebody had a will to cheat on you, that was their will, and this could not be changed. So the most important thing is it happened now, and it didn't happen later on and drawn out. And we have to learn to accept that we cannot control others. And then this great saying, what will be, will be. And if we truly understand that and know that things happen for the divine reason, there is always a silver lining on the other side. because that being there was not right for you. The hurt, the suffering, the pain comes from the thoughts. It is a causation of identifying the ideas that exist inside the mind, the ego, or the intelligence. And during this, you can accept, surrender, and continue. And anytime you feel yourself having a negative idea that brings you emotion, you can fixate the attention presently, so intensely, like you are painting a picture, being very creative, that the mind takes no bearing on you. And eventually these thoughts subside and you're back to yourself again. We cannot change what is.
If we look at the divine plan and the divine journey as well, that things always happen for an ultimate reason. So, even if it feels tough at the time and there's a lot of emotion based around the event, it's always for the greater good. And you look back at that traumatic event that might have occurred at that time, and you see later on, as time passes, you see why it actually happened and the true meaning behind it. And it's like, you look back and you think, that's the reason why that happened.
So why did I waste all of this energy, all of this time and heartache and suffering? Because the ideas that's remaining from the mind is you've just lost something. You're without something. So you're not whole, thus resonating as an imperfect being, which is leading you to immense suffering. This is your power. This is the great work. And every single one of us has a chance to bring homeostasis and balance at all times.
And on that note, what Josh just mentioned then about homeostasis, that if you look at the Temperance Tarot card, it's the androgynous figure, the masculine and feminine, where they unite. And temperance is actually the holistic number of 100. So it's the total, the whole holistic light that shines within us. And when those energies unite, it becomes that androgynous figure. We're having a lot in the media at the moment about, are you male or female, and what do we call you, and stuff like that. And it's just playing out in the matrix.
What goes on inside is always reflected into the matrix.
Internal and external. And when we look at the real reason for it, it's that internal balance again, is what the virtues all come back to. Everything comes back to is that balance. But because it's interpreted in the wrong way, as is all of this, even with history, the Bible, it's an amazing book of truths, but because it's taken not as an allegory and
it's read without depth and wisdom, isn't it?
It's read in a completely opposite way. So people are thinking that all these bad things are going on, and it's actually balancing the internal environment. And once you understand that view on everything that happens in life, then you will be able to work on knowing thyself. And that's where it really ultimately comes down to.
Yeah, because this is a big topic that's going around now, and some of us find ourselves having a little bit of anger towards the common mainstream teachings that are going on within the school system. But it's perfect. Back in our youth, you had Gothic beings. Of course, you had a few homosexuals, etc. And all of these things are actually existing as thought forms within each being, because everyone is what they are. And we were all created and designed what we were supposed to be. But it's the element of suffering that comes with changing your sex, making a mistake, internalizing this all. And hopefully from this is a very speedy evolution for these beings, because it is always a certain type of being that is always finding these ideologies to then be very different and feel a kind of inner acceptance, because they're not necessarily accepted out here, or they don't feel accepted. So they're creating a niche. But what's happening within the matrix is just a seed planter. and it continually plants ideas. And this is all we see within the external.
But it's absolutely perfect, and it's there for a reason, for you to transcend all of these concepts and really, know that internal environment and stabilize that. Because then, if we look at that, and we may, some beings feel anger towards those sort of situations, it brings us on to another virtue of kindness and forgiveness and acceptance. Because when we don't accept that everyone has their own will and we try and push our ideas onto others, this is when again we become very imbalanced. And it's super important to have forgiveness. Forgive those that trespass amongst us, because they don't know no different, and this is their path and their will and their learning and their teaching. So although we're here to shine our lights in any way we can,
you can't do it with anger.
It's not for
You can't do it with pride. You can't do it with any of these vices or sinful ideologies that exist just in the pre-programming nature of yourself. And another thing with the external was the towers, and it was on a 9, which is the number of consciousness, and 11, which is even balancing these two aspects of your temple. And these were built 33 years to the day before they fell. And the 33 is the number of vertebrae in the spine before they fuse. But this is essentially the external expressing the true journey to the peak. And then once you've built these up, this is matter and spirit. So when you build these temples up, you reach a certain elevated state, but you still have not found the self. What you've done through virtue is you've reprogrammed the mind, the intellect, the intelligence, the ego, to be a very sweet viewer, to be very soft and kind and gentle and caring. And there's no more ugly reactivity or negativity. It's pure positivity being interpreted by the mind. But to truly fall into yourself as the creator, you must let go of every single concept that you hold. And this is what remains, is the void or ground zero, the nothingness. And one of the greatest deciphering moments I had was the interpretation, I believe fully is truly correct from seeing it this way, is the Immaculate Conception. Jesus was a man, like we all are, personified, the name. And Christ was found through Immaculate Conception. And to be immaculate is very clean and very pure. And concepts are ideas. So Christ rose from the death of his persona, the person, the constant identity and suffering, from cleaning and clearing every single concept that he had, to being pure and holy. This is exactly what it means. God will never see through the eyes of a person. The Bible speaks to this maybe 19 or 20 times. It doesn't mean you or I. It means looking through the eyes of the interpreter, the persona, the mask, the ego. What's happening is there's a consistent relay of reality, a split second after it's happened, via a dialogue inside your awareness. I don't say head because you don't truly have a head. The head is an idea which was created in consciousness for one's consciousness to fall into, to identify with, to lose itself, and to experience, to then find itself once again.
Like, even as Josh speaks, there'll be a lot of questions that arise in the head, which take you away from presence. And this is what the ego is designed for. It's designed to play around with concepts and, you know, take you away from that presence. But it's a coping mechanism and a comfort mechanism.
And it keeps you alive.
Logical.
Unless you're conscious and present and aware, it keeps you alive. So,
you know, practicing those things that happen on a regular basis, it's always fun as well to play around.
And again, you know, your partner is your greatest asset for this, if you have one. And
or family, you know, close friends, family.
We're always trying as a person to change what is happening, whether we're sat at a dinner table at Christmas with our family members, listening to them talk, you know, making judgments about they should know this, they shouldn't know that, they shouldn't be eating turkey. And essentially, this is yourself causing your own inner suffering. They are their own person, should I say, living the life that they are and need to live. So who are we to say they need to be different? They all have a will, and the will is of God. They're in the most perfect place, doing the most perfect thing at any given time. But it's the idea that we hold about them or ourselves that we are on a greater journey than them. We have higher knowledge and they must know. They don't know the earth is flat, so I'm going to sit at the dinner table and try to tell everybody. But what's actually happening is you're imposing your will and dominance as an ego, created a belief that you are now spiritual, but you have created a different persona and you now identify as a spiritual person, which is not the idea of spirituality, which we spoke of last time. The idea of spirituality is actually letting go of concepts and understanding these aspects within your experience that you cannot change will. I think will is probably the most powerful understanding you could ever have on this journey.
And, you know, it's force that beings feel they need to force upon others, like, you know, preaching what you have learned or the information that you feel is right at that time. But things change, you know, and the only thing that doesn't change is the pure essence within you and the light within everyone. And that's something that, you know, kindness can really bring out in oneself, is that, you know, not creating a prison cell around yourself and others through the words or the thoughts that you are having or experiencing at that time. So letting them be free and letting others be free enables yourself to be free at the same time.
You know, we talk about sadness as a choice. Even happiness is an idea, because the wholeness, the oneness, is just simply put fine. It needs nothing. It doesn't need joy. It doesn't need happiness. It doesn't need anxiety, fear, any of these things. But you yourself are the creator. You yourself have a platform of a phenomenal reality that arises within you. You have the ability to create from this screen of consciousness that is appearing. And it's how you interpret your world. So remember that the most important thing you can do for yourself and others is to recognize that the power is within you and it's down to your own interpretation of things. And as we were speaking, I was just writing down charity for the next opening of a virtue. You know, and all of us, we hold a really nice idea, I'm sure most of us do, that giving is also receiving. We find so much joy in giving others things that they may not be able to have at any given time, whether it's energy, just time. You know, most of the time people drop a few dollars, a few pounds, a few euros into a homeless man and, you know, think that'll change his day. But have any of us sat down next to him, you know, asked him about his journey? Is he okay? Give him some of your time and energy to speak with.
There's also elements of fear based around that kind of
The level of
energy as well.
interpretation, isn't it? On the
Yes.
level that you are, you'll interpret his situation to be different from somebody who may be at a higher frequency. First, you may experience fear,
Mm.
thinking he's a bum, he has no self-worth, he needs to be doing something else. You might see him, as you elevate, as an interesting character. You'd like to know his journey and why he's there. Because most of the time, these people who are homeless make a choice to be homeless. Because the way that they are, they have this innate dysfunction against standard practice reality. The common mean for living. They don't like to work. They don't know why, but they don't like to work. They'd rather be in that situation with themselves on a street than somewhere else. And a lot of the time, homeless people, depending on what area, they actually make quite a good income. Some better than most people's jobs, but take a look at another side of it. When you give, or you're giving charity, do you need to be seen? Can you give anonymously? Or is there an aspect inside the mind that is looking for something, some instant gratification, an idea that somebody else is going to praise them for doing such an act of kindness? And again, this is coming from mind. And it's just another thing that we can really attune to and sweeten up and go against. Because if we give without anyone seeing, do we feel the same? Do we have questions in ourselves? I wonder if he found it. I just wanted him to see me give it to him, and so I knew he would have it. Example. These are excuses. The mind is so complex and very, very sneaky. And the subtleties of such situations will really bring you a great understanding of the depth of the mind. And I find the interpretation of a Rubik's Cube to be perfect. Your element of light is pure, clean and free flowing. But when it's mixed up, it is so hard to put back together.
More like order out of chaos.
And this is the reason, for the Matrix.
Mm.
We believe that governments create chaos so they can control and create order. But the truth is, consciousness creates a chaotic possibility for the observer to see. So one can create order within. It's like the all-seeing eye on a level of conspiracy. We feel like it's somebody controlling reality when it's the self. And the pyramid steps up to it. There's 13 steps, for example, on the back of the dollar bill on this pyramid. There's so many interpretations, the olive leaves, etc. There's all 13. 13 has been branded an unlucky number. So we look at 13 very different from a mind. But observing things consciously in a philosophical way, educating yourself through information without judgment for many years and bringing great synchronicities, will say simple things like M is the 13th letter in the alphabet, which is pure balance. This is why M is the beginning of of the word middle. And you'll see this like magic begins with M. Miracle begins with M.
It's like the death and rebirth. So you've got the death and rebirth. And it's the constant cycle of energy flow. 13 is the die state.
13 is pure balance. Everything is pointing to you to elevate yourself in balance, but the mind is interpreting things as a problem outside. And it needs to be changed. Why does it need to be changed? If the creation, the creator, God, consciousness, however you choose to interpret it, is creating perfectly. Everything that is external to us is necessary for each and every single being to evolve themselves consciously to their next level of experience.
A great work.
So when one is interpreting it differently, is experiencing levels of suffering, is saying, I have the idea that this all needs to be changed, feeling so much negativity and desire to change that which is, the only thing that we can do is go within. Because ask yourself, can you change it? Will you make a difference with your negativity? Or do you continue to spread hearsay and untruths? Again, Bible, be careful of the spreaders of hearsay and untruths. Your negativity, you feel you are looking to others to try to bring them into your field of negativity, unconsciously not knowing, but this is what's happening, to try to bring others on the journey to try to change things. There is nothing more powerful than a free being in knowledge and gnosis of themselves. And once you have found the self and interpreted reality, you tend to let go of any idea to change it. But through that process, you'll be given a platform, if needed, to be put in a position to make a change.
Like letting go of the resentment, the fear, the hate is so freeing. So this is where we need to, look at that teaching and bring the light to that teaching, because that's when we can truly tackle those traumas or those programs that have been deeply imprinted into our being from a young age, and truly let go of those feelings of, if we look at the opposing sin of each virtue, we've got the greed and the gluttony, and the envious aspect. We haven't touched on diligence, but being diligent in your practices, and not sloth and laziness. All of these things are brought back into balance, because that way that is programmed into us, you can become lazy with things, you can feel envious of certain things, and bringing in that humility aspect of like really going about caring, like Josh said, speaking to people and giving time and energy to other beings, and not just the external but the internal, loving thyself and caring. For self-care is really important, to take that time that you truly need to step away from all the chaos that's happening and take your own practices and work with that, because that's where your energy will be emanating, and then you'll be able to then externalize that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And when we just said about that situation with the homeless man, for example, or anyone walking down the street, you see someone sat there, you might want to interpret a conversation or have some dialogue. What's going through your awareness? How many ideas are running through you? What if they don't want to talk? What if I get rejected? I don't know if they're in the right time or space. They might have something to do. All of this is just mind. If you go to somebody and start speaking to them, and they start speaking to you back, right? Whether they have to be somewhere and choose not to say it, it's on them. And the fact that you're speaking to them is actually giving them an opportunity to expand themselves by saying, sorry, guys, sorry, mate. I was just on my way somewhere and I have to be there in 2 minutes, so I don't have time to talk. You would then interpret that as respect. Thank you for telling me you see them as honest. But if they don't, and they sit there and listen to you, but within themselves, now because they haven't acted upon their truth, a demon, a thought will arise. And this is going to continually fester and create agitation and suffering, because they know inside what they should be doing, but they're resisting their own truth. And this is an element of suffering too.
But then that in itself will bring more opportunities for a test for you. So every time that these things happen, you're bringing in that energy of, okay, you need another test to see if you're going to pass again. So you'll be in front of another aspect of where you have to make that decision again. And it will keep happening. And, you find that beings will say to you, oh, why does it always happen to me? Why does this keep repeating and keep, it's just a test for when you're passing those tests. None of this ever happens. Like Josh mentioned about the police being a bit of a test for him when he was first starting his journey on this. And when he passed that, I remember that moment when you passed the test. And it's never happened again since. So he's dropped all of that energy, that energy that was around that situation, that subject, and now it never happens to him anymore. So
I spent many years, probably 6 years, dedicating a lot of time to understanding the nature of law, the person, and being able to liberate myself from the idea that they had an oppressive power over me. And the reason why they are called policy or police is because they're a policy that enforce ideas from statutes and acts from your country or place of residing, and that's only applicable to the person. The person, this is a reflection again what we were spoken about earlier. Spiritually, you have a person blocking you, and if you identify as the person, you never find the spirit, and this is your trap. Externally, physically, you have a person. This person is your name. Your name is your enemy, is not me, but it's a character created at birth for you to engage in commerce or commercial practices. You have a right at any given time to identify with this, to engage in any acts of commerce, and you also have a right not to share this name with anyone. Usually people give it up through fear or lack of understanding, but knowing yourself spiritually, you are saved. Knowing yourself physically, you are also saved. But abiding to the spirit, you will be saved anyway. So we can bypass this years and years of trying to understand the legal system to try and be free here and move straight to the spirit. And that deep knowing will also give you the same understanding of the external.
When I was just seeing a comment there about being born into sin, and
we actually are. We're born into sin. And if we look at it in a way where we're born into an experiential reality, phenomenal reality, that trains the mind to interpret reality through sins or vices. We tend to naturally, let's say previous to now, because it was necessary for mankind to evolve beyond this point. So we needed to be born into sin. We needed to be born into a complex matrix of ideas that essentially create and cause friction within our persona so we can elevate and expand beyond it. So the only purpose for us here is to expand beyond persona, then experience.
So if we look at because whatever is one side has to be the opposite on the other side. So we have the virtue and the sin. So if we're here and we have a lot of, the sins happening, the anger, the lust, the envy, the greed, gluttony, we're very much this side. So like the left brain or like the, areas of sin. And then we're trying to bring ourselves back to not over to here where we're like trying to be this perfect spiritual being, where we're having these other concepts of something else, that we need to be a perfect member of society. We're trying to bring everything into alignment. So to be able to take us away from this kind of area, we need to bring the virtues back in so that we come back into balance. It's all about taking that area and working with the opposing area to bring us back into that balance. We're not trying to create, this human that's a robot on the other side.
Because if you're too far this way, you may also suffer trying to keep up the idea of perfection.
Yeah, it's like a fake persona. So you're faking. It's almost like they say, fake it to make it, isn't it?
It's a new spiritual persona, essentially. So you need to not exist in a persona, but have the ability to be in control at any given moment consciously to make wise decisions and experience life to your will. And unfortunately, most people never get to fully experience life through their own will due to living in thoughts. and acting upon the sinful ways.
Just having that deep gratitude for all learnings, teachings, for all areas of beings. Having gratitude is a very humbling
But
way.
it's so sweetening to your spirit, having the ability to stop for a second, be very present, and actually have gratitude for what you have got. Instead of the mind interpreting things of what you don't have, creating a desire and a suffering,
and envy, lust.
saying it without.
A lustful experience is like trying to have something that others have. Very envious of that, and this brings the sinful behavior very much at the forefront again. So noticing or observing those areas what need a little bit of attention in your own person or your own persona, it's again bringing light to those areas that need a little bit of work.
And this leads me to say that you can do anything if you don't get affected by it. Of course, we need to live by the natural laws. So naturally, when you're elevated, you're not going to create any crime situations. You're not going to cause anybody harm, injury, or loss. And apart from those three things, if it sits okay with you because you hold no concepts about it, it's okay. People say heaven and hell, for example, or in religion, heaven and hell. There's no heaven and there's no hell in the afterlife. There's heaven and hell in this moment. There's heaven and hell interpreting future and past. It's how you are interpreting things, creating the hellish feelings or the heavenly feelings inside yourself. So, we have this conversation privately with a lot of people who are looking to elevate themselves spiritually. And one of the most important questions that we find people asking is it okay to make love with my partner? Because of this massive, huge concept about preserving semen for the light to rise within, to activate Kundalini, to elevate and be conscious. Right? Anyone doing Kundalini yoga, for example, who has experienced a Kundalini awakening, you're actually activating lucidity within yourself. So you're just experiencing what it's like to lucidly dream and doing it unconsciously. As soon as you've had that experience, you come back to your day-to-day activity. You get stuck in traffic, you start swearing, you start finding anger arise. You've had no elevation. This is not spiritual or spirituality. So the idea of preserving semen so the seminal fluid can rise up the spine and enlighten you is not the case. This fluid is always going to be there in the spine, but it's blocked by ideas, concepts, and illusion. If you've created a new concept through your spiritual seeking of enlightenment, that there is a possibility that you may never be enlightened because you are having love with your partner or yourself or doing any of these things, then you've created your reality. You've created a block. You've created an illusion. Now you're at conflict within yourself. This is spirituality. You have to unblock that. You have to recognize and realign that you filled yourself with a concept and an idea from someone else's ideas, which isn't yourself, not through your own experience, not through your own knowing, and you have a belief. This is why belief is B, lie, F. F is 6, which is matter, material. It's a material lie. It's a lie in matter. And I can truly say it does not matter what you choose to do. If it sits with you okay and you haven't been in a conflict, you can do anything. Spirituality doesn't create limits or bars. This is an experience. You have a beautiful opportunity to experience every single aspect of reality, no matter what is going on inside the mind. Surrender it and enjoy life.
So it brings me on to one of our last virtues, that's chastity and gluttony. So chastity is like truly like abstinence. So if we feel that we're too much on the gluttony side of things, so we're having too much of something, then of course, if you abstain from it, then it brings balance back into the being. So when we look at chastity or abstinence or fasting of any kind, we can look at it in the body, mind, spirit way. The body, if we fast from food, it gives our body an opportunity to rebalance, heal everything. So it's a great way to kind of cleanse the body, the vessel. If we abstain from, say, what Josh was speaking about, making love to your partner, then again, we have that period of time of abstinence, which is great. If we're overindulging,
but abstinence is not about sex, it's about everything.
About the holistic package. So if we are overindulging in food, then taking that back to balance is a really good idea. If it's on any level, you could think of any experience in your life or your journey that taking it out of balance is never a great thing. So one way or the other. So when we speak of that as well, pornography is a huge subject within the matrix again at the moment. All the young ones are kind of being brought up on that media images of all of this, what we were speaking of today. So they're heavily influenced on the over-sexualized area. So their balance in that area will need to have some abstinence to bring them back in line.
It's just creating more of the animal, the animalistic reactivity inside of them. How do you become balanced? That's the question. Because abstinence, for me, in the way that I interpret it truly, is abstaining from thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because you cannot be out of balance if it doesn't cause you in a conflict. That's the key. So do that which you will to do. If you want to do it, do it. Because that is your will to experience it. Don't abstain in a thought process, having a desire to do something that you're not fulfilling. But we also must recognize the difference between a desire and a will. Desires exist in mind, and a will exists in a heart. And that is a will to experience. So let go of the conflict, abstain from thinkingness, and please experience your life.
And don't go off of, you may see a lot of beings on the internet that are part of the spiritual community that will say, they're abstaining from sex or they're abstaining from food. But if it's not resonating with you at this part of your journey, just because part of the spiritual community are doing it doesn't mean to say you have to jump on and to be a part of that.
No.
So that feeling of, you want to be a part of something is also another idea of something that, won't make you more spiritual. It might cause you more damage than good because you're actually having all of these concepts built up around it and then not doing
huge
it
expectations. You create these huge expectations of yourself. These expectations are innately your suffering because you have a desire to do something than that which is what you're doing. And this is not necessary. You need to liberate yourself from any type of concept, any spiritual one, any matrix concept. Let go of the whole world and just be yourself. Because to express yourself honestly, Bruce Lee quote, is the hardest thing to do. Are you always in conflict with the actions and thought processes that you do because you believe you have to do something other than that which you are doing? This is your enemy. They say you are your worst enemy. You can be your best friend. You can be anything. This is your ability here. This is your power. You can do or be anything you wish to be, which leads us on to the virtue diligence. Because if you have an idea, a will starting to manifest within you to do something, of course, you're going to apply action to be able to create the knowledge you need to move forward. This is diligence or due diligence. You also have the ability to diligently learn the nature of your reality through energy, frequency, and vibration. We've all heard of the saying through the spiritual movement. I've lost the idea of this spiritual concept. It's gone from me, mother. There's an idea that goes around the spiritual community. You create what you think, or you are. Your resonance creates your reality, for example. But what is your resonance, and how do you resonate? If you want love, you must give the perfect love. You must be prepared to give that which you desire to receive. If you wish to win the lottery, first you must do the lottery and let go of the idea that the lottery is gambling and is a sin and I shouldn't be gambling. But you should sit there, create the image through your imaging faculty and resonate at the frequency that you've already won. This is the attractor field externally pulling in your experience.
This is how magic happens, and you can create your own environment externally and internally if you just know it. Know that it's true, and not just believe in something. It has to be from the heart space. And your divine perfection, magical beings.
Unless you believe you're not, because of a concept and an idea.
A lot of beings find it difficult to hear or truly know when we say you're perfect, you're magic. And a lot of beings feel awkward around that when we speak of that, because
they have personified ideas straight up into the mind. And they're like, well, I do this, I do that, and I do these things that makes me imperfect.
And there's always that negativity energy that's around a lot of areas, especially with money, because again, spiritual people don't need money or want money, and it's thought of as quite a dirty thing. Yeah, but those are just concepts again. What we need money for is to live in this,
and you don't want to build up a relationship to hate money. When you learn the monetary system, one of my pathways through here was learning everything I could about the world, the matrix, and all of its construct and boxes that separate people from joy and happiness. Essentially was the idea that I had. But little did you know, or little did I know, that joy and happiness was found in the interpretation of reality, not reality itself. So, I had a massive journey from the age of about 12. And then when I was about 16 or 17, I was very much into knowledge. And through that knowledge and researching the world full of lies and untruths and deception, created a negative outlook and negative emotions within myself, with a massive desire to change it, tell others, and force them into my essential new belief. But it didn't bring me happiness. This is why information, essentially, I would love to say that knowledge is not power at all. That knowledge is power. Knowledge is force, and you can force people to do things with more knowledge that you have. But the wise one who has attained a knowledge will use it to synchronize, to be able to apply that through internal wisdom to truly no longer be deceived. But still not being deceived, you must recognize that the truth is within you. And here in this phenomenal reality experiencing, this has all come from nothing, the great void. And when you lie down in your bed tonight and you close your eyes and you sit there with yourself, just before you let go of reality, you're aware of nothing. And in that nothingness, if you can just sit with yourself and be with the nothingness, there would be one thing you would wish for, and that wish would be for experience. We are in this experience, which is incredible. And we have the ability to touch, to taste, just to smell, to emote. What more do we want? We must learn to be in tune, fortune ourselves, to then live the lives that we want. It's such a profound recognition, because this is not a teaching. This is a recognition within you. that your happiness lies in here, not out there.
It's very much as soon as the internal environment is balanced, everything else falls into line, into place. And that's when you can start to manifest within the second, isn't it? The true magic will start to happen.
And also, people interpret magic, very differently because we have a world full of illusion. It's not magic; it's illusion. People are looking for somebody to awake, disappear. My mother, for example, she's very much interested in, the television shows which use a video camera with a light on, and they pick up dust in the room, and she believes it, as ghosts. For me, ghosts, hosts, and demons, and these types of entities, they're persona. And a true poltergeist is a negative persona reacting to the external. And for that exorcism, you must exercise the virtues to become free. And practice your acceptance and your surrender.
They're huge keys. And we've got a lot on our website to do with the course of virtues, haven't we?
But we're in the process of writing a much more advanced and inner depth version of the virtues, and then after that we will be doing essentially an elevated aspect of raising children or raising conscious kids, being a conscious parent, teacher, however you wish to interpret it. Because, ourselves, we never had any pointings or any guidance from anyone. And we walked this path ourselves, raising now a 7-year-old beautiful boy who is just an incredible being, so fulfilled, so happy, and is in constant joy, who does interpret things in a good way. One of the most important things I seen you teach him was, instead of, you got 10 minutes before bed, instead of saying, can I have 20, it's better than 5. And that is just such a sweet way to interpret the world. But also homeschooling is very challenging and very, very difficult. For most, it occupies a lot of time, but it's very rewarding. You're not programming your children into the state mind, into the corporate mind. You're having the ability for these wonderful, expressive children. And that's one of the courses we have yet brought to light, which we will be doing next. And I think it's so important just to have that guidance, that blueprint.
But again, everything, the ultimate teachings come back to these virtues, and these are the real keys of how to, the angles in which you can choose to take your life and your journey, and others as well, because others will pick up on your energy and your vibration, and they'll want to be around it. It's just like a magnet, is that if you're emanating that energy out into the universe, then you'll again receive it back to you. So it's such a huge shift. It was a huge shift for us, wasn't it, when we started practicing these things, and now it's very much automatic.
Can everyone see now? I'm not saying that you couldn't before, but can you all see that it's not out there, it's in here? There is no mysticism and weird reality shift. You're not going to see, rainbow unicorns. This is not the case, but we do have these concepts within us. Andy, good comment. Application is key. And that's why we use truth of application, because without the application, you believe. Belief is just a word of concepts about ideas that you know nothing about. If it's not happening in your experience, it is not real. So let it go. And D-Man, where is your atonement for sin? I think, the word says it itself. The atonement is, there we go, at one mind. Not the personified mind, but the great mind, the creator, yourself. This is atonement, being in one mind without the two minds, the indecisiveness of the ego. Inward. Yeah. So I'm just going to quickly, because we like to keep these live shows a little bit shorter so it doesn't put people off viewing them, because we like to put wonderful notices in here for elevation for everyone. But yeah, the elevation is here, it's within you. It's the way that you interpret reality. I hope that each and every one of you have seen this now and are really looking inward.
And there are quite a few videos on your YouTube channel that we've done a while back with regards to the virtues. So have a little look through the videos.
They're lovely.
On the
We did them with Sister Eloise, I think, didn't we? Abe, have I been working out? My brother, you look so. I have been. Thank you for the kind comment. I won't let it attach to the ego.
You had to pick that one out.
Yeah, I chose it specifically.
Had it highlighted.
Yeah. Do you know about the amazing antioxidants and the substance called methylene blue? I have not heard of this. I'm sure it's something new that has come out. I'm just going to copy it and quickly put it in. But what I would say is a lot of these things do arise within the communities. But I actually have heard of it. Yeah, I have. But it's come up. I haven't done any research with it or experienced it. But what I would say is that there is nothing more powerful and potent than nature, fruit, and fasting. Getting rid of your disease, obviously through the alignment of energy here, through the alignment with nature and proper food habits, and then utilizing fasting and going back to a place that you wish to eat and stay with without conflict. But no, I mean, I'll take a look at it and maybe we could speak about it next time, but truly I have no experience with it. Any thoughts on red light therapy? Red light therapy as in infrared light therapy for heat. I think things like that are in moderation. They're great. Heat therapy is good for injury, recovery, also along with cold therapy. But I think excess time under infrared lights may be adverse for the skin. When my mind's playing games that are a little wacky, I say I am as a mantra and everything stops. And that's good because it works for you, Brother Finn. That's what's important. You know, what I did as a growing practice was I learned to take my attention away from mind by intensely being with the moment and then seeing once the mind's grip let go, that then I had this innate ability to just leave it alone. And of course, through my beginning stages, I was incredibly within, contemplating on every aspect of conflict within me and realigning that. And I think that was the most powerful thing that I could have done, living and existing within the physical plane and mind.
It takes practice and time and patience.
It's like anything, it's consistency.
Consistency, the time that you can spend with it, and you know the practices that you put in place. And again, walking through that journey, taking those steps that you're able to take each day rather than trying to go full force, like the tortoise and the hare story. You know, running as fast as you can with something is not always the best idea. It's taking those steps that you feel you're able to at that time, and putting the practices into place and place daily, and just being, accepting that that's where you are with the journey. And then as soon as you get that practice up and running, it's like a snowball effect. And then you look back in 6 months and things are already happening as they should. So it's about that journey, not so much the destination at first.
I see here from Sister Divine Spirit 313. I have friends that keep using Bible scriptures to justify their distrust. Perfect, and exactly where they need to be. And destructions of and to others, saying God destroys those not chosen, that they will bring God's wrath. So we all have an innate choice to give to the mind, to act upon sin, to give to the self and act upon virtue. This is the choice. And that choice is innately within ourselves that we suffer and destroy ourself, and we are God. So what they're saying is right, interpreted wrongly, but essentially we destroy ourselves, our cells, and very being by living in sin. And essentially we do this by choice, by choosing to be with the mind, the ego, the persona. And she says, I stay calm and try to say God doesn't need defense or them to destroy anything. We can just accept them for being themselves. We don't need to say anything, and we can just appreciate their view and outlook upon the Bible. The Holy Bible itself, as we've explained, many times in our previous, work, is this holy, whole Bible, two bulls, the two hemispheres, the self and the ego. I think we may not have had any questions. I like to give everybody an opportunity to ask if they don't understand or understand anything we've said today, if they'd like us to elaborate more. Dark magic is spoken of here. That's something it needs to be understood. A lot of people unwillingly do not know that they're using dark magic, but it is to coerce others according to one's own will and manipulate them because they don't have the strength to be themselves or to say no. And in doing so, we create an anti-alignment with universal law, which then has a negative effect on ourselves. So we always must be careful when, if we're using our spiritual power to manipulate others into our will, which always goes bad in the end. Because we cannot change will. I think there's no questions here today. And if I've missed any, I'm still scrolling through. Philosophy or idealism, you for, or you just about anything in life. Your form, us is, the Americans is liberally for minds and spiritually, I think. Philosophy or idealism. You for, or you just.
The US and
I'm not sure what that really is trying to say. I think there might be a word or two missing that's not allowing me to interpret it right. But yes, thank you. You're all incredibly wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us for this time. Sorry, or apologies for the beginning, my error. So let's all put into practice the virtues, because we're bringing the virtues to light again, because we're just upgrading the virtue course, because we feel it's so profound. It's so important for every single one of us on our journey to elevate ourselves if we're truly looking for inner peace, happiness, joy, and of course reflecting that into the world so others can experience it through ourselves. Is there anything that you would like to say before I close tonight's?
I just want to send love to everyone and gratitude for you all for being here with us tonight. We really enjoy these live shows, don't we?
We do.
Just connecting with you all and everyone from different areas. So our times are probably different. But,
yeah. The next time, if you have any spiritual concepts that you've found through others that you're not sure about, or any concepts within the world that you are struggling to deal with or to make sense of, please bring them to light here for us. Because,
we always love a good concept, don't we?
Yeah,
we love hearing about it.
I love, and one of the things that we have the ability to do is to be able just to put that concept into an easy, assimilated way so we can process it and then, align ourselves with what is the divine truth and the higher truth of it to move forward, because there's so many barriers to concepts. And what we're trying to do is point you in a direction to unbox yourself, to be the present, to be the gift, to circle your square and just find alignment. And I feel like we do have the ability to put these mystified concepts to rest through the work that we've done. And that's what we're here to do for you. So we love you all so very much. Continue to do what you're doing. Continue to let go of concepts. Act according to your will. Surrender the ideas of the mind and enjoy every experience that you're in. Every single experience that is here. Give it your full attention. Be attentive to your partner. Be attentive to your children. Be attentive to your friends. Be attentive to your work. Be attentive to every single thing that you do.
The most important, be attentive to the self. Once the self is in balance, everything else just becomes that which you are. So that's a really huge thing to be with. Just be.
And ultimately, with that last word, just be, there is nothing to do. Nothing. Leave every idea alone and you'll be happy. But that is a difficult thing for the mind to conceive.
You're already it.
You don't need to pick up any idea because it's all here and it's all now. And you miss the here and you miss the now. And the joy of observing, using your senses, your feelings, your emotions in a good way. And it's all for grabs. And it's down to you. On that note, I love you. Michelle.
I love you.
She loves you. We love you. Thank you for being with us. It's just beautiful that we can be here with you. Take care. Infinite love and light. Our beautiful website, xfamUnity.com. Instagram is xfamilyunity. Is that right?
Yeah.
Support us if you can. Come and evolve yourself. We still have this great idea that we wish to create so many fruit forests and organic gardens for communities. And we're just awaiting the true alignment for that. So share this, like it, and hopefully we can reach more people through the algorithms of YouTube and social media as we begin our journey to expand and express more vastly. So God bless you all. Thank you again. Take care. We love you. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much. Goodbye.